Really reacting to some of the things that went on yesterday in week 5 of the college football season. So, first of all, I was wrong about Oklahoma State. I picked them to win the Big 12 this year, and they're not even close. So I wasn't really expecting their defense to be very good, but I did expect it to be probably a little bit improved this year with all they had coming back on that side of the ball. But it looks like it's even worse than last year. And the big surprise, though, with Oklahoma State is their offense. It looks bad, and I thought that it would be one of the best in the country this year because they returned a running back that won the award for the best running back in the country last year. And then their whole offensive line returned full of seniors. And then they have three NFL wide receivers back. And then a quarterback that wasn't great last year, but he was solid for them last season. And he's a seventh year quarterback. And their offense only scored at 20 points yesterday against Kansas State, and then they gave up 42 points to them. And then their offense couldn't outscore Utah, who was playing a backup quarterback that is horrible. But you would have thought that Oklahoma State could have had a really good team with all they had coming back and a proven head coach. And now they may just win like 6 or 7 games this season. They don't even look like a top 25 team. And then Utah, I'm getting suspicious with the Cameron Rising situation because he tore his ACL in the bowl game of the 2022 season, and then he missed the whole year of the next season, and then he returned this year for a couple of games, and then had a hand injury that supposedly it wasn't very severe, and now he's missed the next 3 games. And from what I've heard is that it's not to where he can't throw the football; it's just that he can't throw it as well as he could before he hurt his hand. But I'm wondering if he is actually just scamming Utah now for money and doesn't actually want to play football because you would think that he would have come back at this point with just an injury like that uh, because football players play when they're not completely 100% all the time. Football is just a rough sport, but if he doesn't come back this week, I think he should probably just quit. And then Utah lost the game to Arizona 23-10 because they have no offense when Cameron Rising isn't in there. Of course, Cameron Rising is a good quarterback, so I see why he gets paid a lot of money to uh, play there. But the thing is that he's not hardly played these last couple of seasons, so he's got to get out there and play, or he just needs to go. And then Ole Miss, they let me down bad yesterday. I will never come on here and make another video about how great Ole Miss is until they actually prove that on the field. They've got a lot of work to do to get anywhere near where they were supposed to be this season. And I should have known that Ole Miss would let me down, even though they had an 11-2 season last year and had upgraded their roster from last season by a lot, losing to Kentucky 20-17 on their home field. And Kentucky, they are probably a decent team, but they already lost 2 games, and I can pretty much guarantee you that they're going to lose 2 more games. So I know Kentucky probably has a good defense, But Ole Miss's offense was just garbage yesterday. 17 points was unacceptable. They should have still scored at least 30 points in that game. As powerful as their offense is, I've been thinking for years that the play calling on offense for Ole Miss has been bad, and I think that's what ruined them in this game. The play calling was terrible. They have got to get Caden Prescorn, their tight end, a lot more involved. They didn't get him involved in the, the pass game until near the end. And then they barely even tried to throw to any of their other wide receivers than Trey Harris. Trey Harris did what he does usually. He did great, catching 11 passes for I think 176 yards and a big touchdown catch. But they've got several other really good receivers that they barely even tried to get the football to, and then they kept trying to do things that weren't working on offense. Uh, Defensively, they weren't great, but they did okay. Ole Miss does have a really good defensive line, but their secondary is still not where it needs to be for them to have an elite team. So they made that Kentucky quarterback actually look pretty good when he had looked horrible in his first two SEC games. Trey Amos, the cornerback at Ole Miss that transferred there from Alabama, I don't know if he's forgotten how to cover wide receivers because he got called three times yesterday for either pass interference or holding, and he also did another pass interference that could have been called but wasn't. And I know when he played in the SEC championship game last season, uh, replacing Kool-Aid McKinstry, he looked really good. So I know he's got a lot of talent, but he messed up Ole Miss in that game a lot. They might have been able to win if it hadn't have been for his dumb mistakes. Now I can understand getting one penalty like that in a game, but three and could have been four. That's unacceptable. And Ole Miss that fell out of the AP top 10 down to number 12, and they deserve that until they prove that they are actually a great team. They don't deserve to be ranked really high. I'm hoping a lot that that was just a bad game, but if not, Ole Miss is probably going to lose 4 or 5 games this season. And then Alabama is confirmed to be Georgia's owner now because, like I said in a YouTube video many months before the season began, Georgia versus Alabama is the biggest game of the regular season this year because Georgia, now that Nick Saban has retired, was considered to uh, be the new best program of college football. But before they can actually be called the new best program of college football, they've got to show that they can beat Alabama on the field, and they showed the opposite last night. So Georgia is not the new best program. Alabama is still right now the top program of college football, and they're a national title contender still. And Georgia is too, if they can avoid having to play Alabama again, because they're obviously still not capable of beating them. But it was probably the best game that I've seen all season. Alabama got way ahead 28 to nothing, and then got behind late, and then had the big touchdown catch to win the game 41 to 34. But I've hardly ever seen a team get so far ahead and then end up behind like that. I don't think that would have happened if Nick Saban was still there. But Georgia falls to 1-9 in their last 10 meetings with Alabama. So Alabama's defense, though, I think is not as good as it was last season because when they played Georgia in the SEC championship game last year, they only gave up 24 points, and then in this game they gave up 34 points. And Georgia's offense is not as good as it was last year, I don't think. Now I know they still have Carson Beck at quarterback, but they don't have Brock Bowers at tight end or Lad McConkey at wide receiver, Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton at running back that they had in that game, who were really good players. Now they've got some new players, but they're not as good as those players were. But Alabama's offense is very explosive and really good. Ryan Williams is an amazing player at wide receiver for Alabama. He's only 4 games into his college career, and I'm already going to predict that in 2027 he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He's already one of the best receivers in college football, and he had in that game 177 yards and 6 catches, and he had the big game winning touchdown. And Jalen Milroe might actually win the Heisman Trophy this year. He had a huge game, and so did Carson Beck. Those are two of the best quarterbacks in college football. So the difference, though, is the quarterback runs that Milroe does that Carson Beck can't do. And of course, Milroe, nearly all of his numbers came in the first half, while Beck's nearly all of his came in the second half. Georgia and Alabama are no doubt two of the best teams in the country, and Georgia only fell to number 5, and they don't deserve to fall a lot in the rankings because it was a close game. But that will be it with this video, and please subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.